Hey YouTube, this is Nordic Brit. A few days ago, during this last week, I've been posting videos regarding the situation unfolding with Wall Street bets and the kind of class warfare between the hedge funds and the retail investors. But basically, what I mentioned was that a few days ago I would release a video kind of outlining the kind of similarities between what happened during the 1933 Great Depression and what's happening right now. There's a lot of things that are very similar between the two, and it's just kind of a prediction from my own point of view. Obviously these things go in more depth and in more detail beyond what I can explain here, but there are some parallels which I think are worth noting. So stick around and I'm just going to outline those for you. So, as a quick history lesson for those of you who are not aware, during 1933 was one of the greatest depressions in the United States in history. And it's well understood at this point that the depression itself was caused by essentially rumors and speculation from basically the elites at the time and bankers who controlled most of the large banks at the time. This depression in itself basically was precipitated by a set of rumors that a bunch of other banks and various stocks were essentially insolvent and had no money, which caused everyone to run out and get their money, which then caused them to have no money. And basically what happened was that they created the problem and then the solution. That's it's very typical in these kind of scenarios. Obviously what happened during 1933 in the Great Depression was in essence a lot more complicated than that, a lot more detailed than that, but essentially it was caused by mismanagement and basically the people at the top playing casino with everyone's money, which is what they do now. And basically that was a huge bad time for everyone, and to fix that problem, this has happened in the past in other countries as well, but this is very famous because during this time what they basically said was to fix this problem they would need to take everyone's gold, and basically there was a gold seizure by the government, and then refusing to hand over the gold was a criminal sentence. You had to hand over the gold. And what this meant was that the bankers and the elite said, we can fix the problem now, we can issue this new type of currency, it won't be backed by gold, it'll be something different. And of course, that was one of the greatest robberies in history. Basically, it was not even done in a kind of nefarious way, if you want to put it. It was pretty much in public. Give us your gold or you're going to prison, essentially. And of course, everyone lost the gold. And now it's very difficult to get hold of gold. It's very valuable. If people had gold back then, today they would be very wealthy. But they don't have it anymore. Now, what's happening right now is unusual because obviously we live in a kind of more globalized world. So back in 1933, the United States and various other economies were not so globally connected the way they are now. So there's a lot more connecting us. So something that happens in the US now would affect other countries as well. As it happens in another country, it would affect the US and so on. This was proven essentially in 2008 during the mortgage crisis, where you had a US-based mortgage and derivatives crisis that affected Spain and Greece and other countries. So it shows you that we are kind of connected in such a way that is impossible to disconnect, that something that happens in one place is going to affect you in another. Anyway, so basically what's happening right now is that there is a lot of movement with the silver price right now, and then obviously Wall Street. The stock market is a massive bubble right now. It's huge. None of it makes any sense because basically during times of unease and instability, businesses hate this, and yet the stock market is high. That doesn't make sense. Businesses don't like instability, they like things to be the same. They like things to be stable. They like things to be coherent. And basically what you have right now is a bunch of runaway company stocks and huge amounts of investment, which doesn't make sense right now. And also, if you just look around, you can see Wall Street investors and these hedge fund managers are talking about how there's like a really big game right now. There was some post earlier today basically about this, about how they can make a lot of money right now. They know that things are going to collapse soon. But there's also been this kind of push around silver lately, which is concerning, because basically what this means is that there's some effort to basically try to get hold of the silver. Now, while I don't think the US government or other governments will essentially do the same as what they did in 1933 with the gold, when it comes to the silver, I think they're just trying to buy it up. They'll buy it up as much as possible and encouraging people to sell it, because there's been lots of speculation around silver. Is there a shortage? I don't know. A few good channels on YouTube have mentioned it. It could be a false flag on the silver. There's too many variables to consider, especially when you're dealing with these kind of people. So it's always better to try to look at things from both sides. But in essence, really, what it means is do not sell your silver. Do not sell it in a way that gives it over to hedge funds and rich elite, because if the Wall Street, if the stock market does crash, you're going to be left with nothing. If they seize, because they've already got most of the gold, if they take the silver as well, then there's another area that they've got. But obviously, we live in a different time now. We live in a different world now. We have kind of the internet, interconnected technologies, and so on. So there's other areas that they're probably looking at. And while silver is a valuable precious metal, it's only as valuable as what we say it is. If we don't have any faith in the currency drops. And one thing that does concern me is that even if they don't go after the silver, they will go after the cryptocurrencies. They will go into regulation in such a way to make it difficult for you and me and other people to actually be able to use these currencies in a way that we intend to, which is, democratize the entire currency and basically remove the power from a few people and just make it a kind of wholly involved thing by every person, where it can't really be corrupted in the same way. Although it still has flaws, it's a lot better than what we have right now. So what I'm expecting right now is that there will be some kind of push on the silver, because throughout history, precious metals always kind of revert to being the default for a while, or at least backing a currency. And I'm also expecting regulation of some kind on cryptocurrencies. So it's really interesting to look at the market right now. It's really interesting to look at how these big players are moving. When you've got these hedge funds moving around and investors moving around, and these people going on CNBC and all these other kind of channels talking about this. So I'm watching this and I'm kind of like, it's interesting. It's interesting to see the parallels between back then and now. And back then they talked about, I think this company is insolvent and this bank is insolvent, triggering rumors which were based in no facts. And what happened was they caused the collapse, and then their own solution fixed it, which resulted in them getting incredibly wealthy and removing a huge amount of wealth from people. So this is kind of my prediction. Other people may have different predictions, but that's kind of where I'm looking at this right now. It is concerning because, as we play this game of kind of David and Goliath, as we kind of fight these kind of hedge funds and these rich people, what we're doing is we are making this fight more public, which means that they're going to be more public and they're not going to be hiding stuff as much as they used to. They will basically go out and say, look, we own you. We own the government. We'll make regulation. Earlier today, yesterday, an investor on CNBC or one of those channels basically said that I don't care, let them lose, as in referring to the retail investors, and some billionaire didn't care. The difference being obviously that when they make these speculations, when they make these rumors, they don't see people, they don't see anything beyond the money, beyond the figure that you see. So when the stock market goes up and down, they don't care what happens to the company really, because but the reality is the company is people. the people who go home and provide for their families and buy food and put it on the table and pay for their mortgage. So if a company's stock goes down because they're betting with it and a few thousand people lose their jobs, it doesn't mean anything to them. And that's a huge problem, because we are getting into this kind of time now where the economy itself, the market system that we live in, is struggling. It's struggling under its own weight. Its design, it's flawed from the start, obviously. Inflationary, the kind of Federal Reserve banking system, the fractional reserve banking system that we live in is essentially designed to fail, because eventually it cannot sustain itself. It's impossible mathematically, as well as the fact that jobs are becoming more automated, and this need to work to provide is starting to become harder and harder. And you can see this even in socially welfare developed countries like here in Sweden, other Nordic countries that have large welfare systems also are beginning to struggle with supporting the welfare system under the weight of corruption and rich people not paying their taxes and playing too many games with the pension funds and the insurance funds. So I think it's really interesting to look at this. Do I think that things will be as bad as in 1933? I don't know, I'm not sure. However, back in 1933, people were living like this, and then they dropped to this. But the drop from here to here, we're used to being up here now. The drop for us will be even steeper for what we live now and how we expect it to live now. So it will be even worse if it does drop. So I think it's really good advice to be prepared. Be prepared with your finances. Be prepared with making sure you've got some valuable, tangible currency of some kind that you can use to trade with other people. You never know what's going to happen. And when these things happen, it's already too late once you find out. So it's already, you need to be prepared for these kind of things, whether it's you might lose your job because of a squeeze, or whether the currency collapses completely. There's so many factors to take into consideration, and it will happen really quick. So be prepared to think about that. I'm taking precautions on my side of things, looking at my investments, looking at my various cryptocurrencies, various other things that I've got invested in, as well as my preps for food and medicine, things that we rely on as well for short squeezes. And if it comes to the long term, then that's something that we all have to look into and consider. But all the signs are there. The stock market is a massive bubble. It will collapse and pop at some point. Technically speaking, I think it's supposed to be correct now that the United States has actually been in recession now for several years. Other countries are as well. So we are already in recession. Lots of countries are already in recession have been for a long time. So when the stock market goes up in some countries in recession, and then we have a global pandemic, this is like the bubble all over again, like the dot-com bubble and various others. It's the writing is absolutely all over the wall. So just take care, everyone. Be careful with that, and take this advice for what it is, and try to just keep yourself safe and your family safe, and we'll see how things turn out. So, but eventually the stock market has to readjust. It has to go down or it has to pop. That's just a fact. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next video, which hopefully will be a prepping video. These kind of Wall Street bets and stock market has been insane, but it's been such important news that I've kind of stopped making the prepping videos in turn for making these. But thank you for your attention, for the new subscribers and everything like that. It really means a lot to me to know that other people are also looking at the same information. It makes the world look a bit better when you realize that more and more people are taking more notice of the finance and the world we live in. So anyway, Nordic Brit out. I will see you in the next video.